we gotta stretch it out because we're gonna be on the floor for a bit. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now for today's video, I'm doing another book haul. As you can see, I changed the angle a bit so you guys can see a part of the corner of shame. If you guys are new to my channel, I call the corner of my shame the towers of shame because they feature all the books that I bought in the last couple of months or weeks or quarter. I have been a little bit behind with showing all the books I have bought recently, mostly because I don't want to reorganize my whole room. I know that once I show you guys these towers of books, I have to move them to a different location so I don't get confused, and then I show up in another book haul and I'm just repeating myself all over again. If you guys have watched my latest video, I already uploaded another book haul, so let's just call this book haul part 2. Yes, there is random stuff on my towers. As you can see, this is my wallet and a notebook that are filled with notes that I take for work. And over there is just a bunch of crap that we don't need. But let's get started with this book haul. I'm going to start off with some of the books that I acquired from a thrift shop near my city. These are all historical romances that I did pick up simply because of the cover and step back, and I'm just reading through the synopsises now, and they sound all amazing. So the first book that I want to talk about is this one from Christina Todd. This one is called A Well-Pleasured Lady, and then it has a beautiful step back like this one. This one involves our heroine who is a lady. She's very beautiful, she's gorgeous, she gives her innocence to our hero and she's betrayed. So now she lives kind of a noble life as a housekeeper, and she disguises herself and hides her body with just ugly plain servant clothes. And she thinks that the hero, once he comes back into the picture, doesn't recognize her, but little does she know he can spot her from a mile away. And now they have to pretend that they are betrothed so that he can solve this mystery. And I'm super intrigued by Christina Todd. I've seen her books everywhere, and she also writes a lot of romantic suspense as well. Another historical romance that I did pick up is this one from Iris Johnson. This one is called Dark Rider. I was very intrigued by the title Dark Rider. It sounded like a hero who was brooding and who is just stubborn and angry. And the step back did not disappoint me. He is riding a horse and it's completely black, so it is like a dark rider. I don't know. The story goes is that our hero wants to act revenge on our heroine's father, and obviously our heroine doesn't want her father to be harmed, so she offers herself as sacrifice. I think this will be really interesting to read. So this book I bought simply because of the cover, and let's just take a moment to understand how beautiful this cover is. So we have our hero and heroine, but in the reflection of the mirror, he is wearing a mask. Why? I think he's a scarred hero. This book is called The Mask by Donna Lee Poff. And this one involves our hero who is reclusive, he's dark, he's mysterious, and he falls in love with our heroine because she is fair-haired, she's beautiful, and she's gorgeous. So this is like the perfect romance for me. I can't wait to dive into this one. So we have the next one, which is called His Wicked Ways by Samantha James. And this one has just like a fun little step back. It has a hole in here and then you can see a little bit of it. This one involves like a faded star-crossed lovers romance. Our hero wants to destroy our heroine's father's reputation and his life for something her father did, and she is just kind of like an innocent bystander in this situation. He struggles with this and he doesn't want to harm her, but he also wants to act revenge. So this one's going to be an angsty medieval historical romance. So the next historical romance I have here is from Elizabeth Lowell. This one's called Untamed. Bought it simply because of the step back. I really thought it was really pretty. It's pink, it's gorgeous. It's about our hero who is returning from the Crusades, and he is triumphant and he won, and his prize is our beautiful heroine. And now our heroine doesn't want to have anything to do with him, obviously, because it's not by her choice that she is now given to this guy. So this one's going to be a fun little enemies to lovers romance. I don't know why I thought this was a historical romance, but it's not. It's actually a contemporary romance, and I'm so excited for it because, like, look at this step back. I've never seen a contemporary romance with a beautiful step back like this. So I feel like I'm gonna go back on thrift books to go see if I can find any more books from Barbara Freethy. This one's called One True Love. Our heroine's name is Lisa, so I'm just gonna self-insert myself, but she it has a second chance romance with her husband who comes back into the picture, or her ex-husband, and she's babysitting her for her sister's like kids, and then that's when her ex-husband steps back into the picture, and then now they kind of have this like love-hate relationship mixed with second chance. I can't wait to read this one too as well. Next up, we have this one from Galen Foyley. This one's called Her Only Desire, and it has a beautiful step back like this. Our heroine wants to marry for love, but she also wants freedom in her marriage as well. She doesn't really see anyone that she feels attracted to, but then our hero comes storming into the city, and he is here to diffuse the tension between two countries because they might be in trouble of having a war or starting a war. And our heroine shouldn't be liking him because he's dark and mysterious and he might be hiding something, but she is like a moth to a flame and she cannot leave his side. Next up, we have this one from Joe Goodman. This one's called More Than You Know, and this one has a beautiful back cover. I just fell in love with the flowers and the purple dress and everything. Basically, our hero is on a plantation and he's here to solve a mystery, but the plantation owner does not want him to wander around and do things his own way, so he makes him go with his granddaughter, which is our heroine. Next up, we have this one from Kathleen Coulter. This one's called The Countess. I just read the back where Catherine wrote to the reader explaining how this book came about. It used to be named The Autumn Countess, but it has been renamed and actually has been rewritten because in the beginning it was said to be like Regency disguised as Gothic. So she rewrote it so it'll be more Gothic instead of Regency romance. And this would explain this really creepy and daring step back that I see right here. Honestly, I don't think I'm really that interested in reading this book. I think I just collected it simply because of the step back. But basically, someone is trying to kill our heroine and she needs to figure it out right away. She's young, she's rich, and she is everything that I want to be. So the next book that I have here is from Christina Todd again. This one's called The Prince Kidnaps a Bride, and it has a beautiful step back like this. And now this one sounds really interesting because it's about two royal members. Our hero is a prince and our heroine is a princess. They were obviously put together so that they could, you know, have two ruling countries, like they can merge their powers together since they're ruling over separate countries. I don't know how to explain this. They have an arranged marriage, okay? But then what happens is that a war sparks and they never, I guess they never met, and then they never could get married. And he was locked in a prison because of his royal status. And then she has to escape because she's going to get killed if they capture her. So she has to disguise herself and she has a companion. And the companion just so happens to be our hero who escaped from jail. And now it's up to both of them to work together to take back what's theirs. And I think this one's going to be so interesting and so thrilling as well. Next up, we have this second chance romance from Julia London. This one's called The Book of Scandal, and it has a beautiful cover like this. It's actually kind of like Marriage in Trouble too as well. Basically, our hero and heroine are married, but then they obviously separated so that they could both live their own lives. But he hears a rumor that her reputation is about to get ruined because she is going to be published in a book called The Book of Scandal. So the only way to save his reputation and also to save her reputation is to really just abduct her and take her out of London. And then this is kind of like that messy situation where we have two people who never liked each other in the first place, but they're stuck with each other and then they slowly fall in love with each other as well. The next one I have here is from Bethany Cron, and this one's called The Soft Touch, and it has a gorgeous step back like this one. Honestly, Bethany has really beautiful step backs and I want to collect them, but I also don't really see why I need to spend so much money on more books because I already have so many books. But anyways, this one sounds like it's going to be a wild hoot. Our heroine is way too nice, and the problem is being with way too nice is that she can't say no, and then she ends up with like 3 fiancés, and she keeps it all a secret. Like she doesn't let the fiancés know of each other, and she like keeps pushing off marriage, saying that she can't marry until she turns a certain age. Meanwhile, our hero is like a blue-collared type of hero. He's from a different side of tracks, and he wants to build a successful railroad. The only problem is that he doesn't have money. But then he realizes that the person who does have money is our female heroine. So he tries to convince her to lend him money to build this railroad. So I think this one's going to be pretty funny or a hot mess. I don't know. So moving on to some contemporary romances that also thrifted includes this one from Shiloh Walker called Raised. This one follows a best friends to lovers romance. Our hero and heroine are best friends. They work together. They're business partners, but she had a string of bad relationships that have left her kind of cold-hearted and broken, and our hero has been in love with her for a very long time. So now he needs to convince her that he is going to treat her right and that they are meant to be with each other. So this one sounds like it's going to be a fun little ride when I'm in the mood for a short contemporary read. The next contemporary romance that I thrifted includes this one called Mismatch, and this one's by Lauren Lane McGee, and this one is an opposites attract romance. It's also like kind of a romance that they weren't supposed to fall for each other, but they did end up anyways. It has a matchmaking theme. Our heroine is a matchmaker, and she's been hired by our hero, who is like this billionaire boss type of character, to find him a suitable girlfriend. The one person that he like despises and thinks that is like not his type at all just so happens to be everything our female heroine embodies. Like that's her character. That's the type of person that he hates. But he can't deny that every time she walks in the room, his eyes are always on her, and he's like really insanely attracted to her. So now he's kind of just like fighting his feelings and getting really confused by his reaction whenever they spend time with each other. I think this one's going to be so freaking fun. So the next book that I have to haul is this anthology with Laura Foster, Erin McCarthy, and Morgan Lay, and this one's called Bad Boys and Black Tie. So there's 3 novellas that are put together in this book. The first one is called Good with His Hands, and this one's from Laurie Foster. This one involves next door neighbors that are forbidden to ever have a relationship with each other because they're next door neighbors and things can get weird, but they have an insane attraction to each other, and he decides to transform himself into a different person, and now she can't keep her hands off of him. The second book is called Miss Extreme Congeniality by Erin McCarthy, and this one is about our heroine and our hero who are enemies to lovers, and I think they're special agents because he is a FBI partner of hers, and he's going to transfer to somewhere far, far away, and now she has lingering feelings for him. The last one's called Last Call by Morgan Lay, and this one involves our heroine who has a house that's going to be foreclosed, and now she needs to meet someone so that she can keep her job and she could like keep the house that she lives in. The next thrifted book that I have here is called Sleeping with the Enemy. It's an out of bounds novel by Tracy Solham, and this one sounds really interesting. Our hero is a billionaire and he owns a football team, but what happens is that his reputation, or the reputation of the football team that he owns, is being destroyed by an anonymous blogger, and a couple of cheerleaders are filing a class action lawsuit against him. So he needs the help of a very smart lawyer. Enter our heroine. Our heroine used to be his lover, so this is a second chance romance, and she has to spend a lot of time with him to gather all the evidence to bring against the case so that he doesn't get sued. And this is the story of them just mingling and falling back into each other's arms and also falling in love. And then another romance that I picked up is this one called Wrecked by Shiloh Walker again. This one involves our heroine who has an ex-husband, and her ex-husband wants to come back into the picture and talk to her, but she is like destroyed by that relationship, so she asks the help of her best friend, and she uses her best friend like for venting purposes like you would always do. And obviously they both have a strong attraction to each other, and he likes her, but he also knows to give her space because she's still working out her emotions with her previous husband. So the wintertime is usually a time where I really like to read thriller novels. I like to read things that kind of just shock my system, clean my palate, and I turn to thriller novels. But obviously I don't want to spend too much money on thriller novels because they're not my main genre that I do read. So what I do is I look for sales, and then I also look towards thrift stores for cheaper copies of these books that are blowing up the bookstores. So the first book that I have here is Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubeka. I don't know how to say her last name. So this book involves like a small town where 3 people go missing, but at different times, but very close to each other. And then all of a sudden the little girl comes back, and now nobody knows what happened, like what caused their disappearance. 11 years later, the little girl returns and it becomes super creepy and chilling. And my friend actually read this book, Jessica from Peace Love Books. I saw that she gave it a pretty high rating and she thought that it was thoroughly entertaining, so I'm excited to be gripped by this novel. Okay, my hair is kind of wild because I had to take out my headband, but the next book that I have to show you guys is this one called Safe and Sound by Philippa East. And this one looks really entertaining because it's just like, if you look here, it's just like a giant wing. Why? I don't know. But this one involves a small London bed set. I don't know what that is. A radio is playing and a small dining table is set for 3. But curled up on the sofa is a body. Our main heroine finds the body alongside all the police officers, but they're wondering to themselves, why did this body was discovered now 10 months after the person died? I don't know. It looks creepy. People are like talking about it as a page-turning portrait of isolation. Ooh, I'm scared already. The next thriller novel that I have here is called Such a Good Wife by Serafina Noble Glass, and this one sounds really interesting. I love my thrillers to have a very humane aspect to it, where our characters are very raw and very realistic, which makes it very relatable, which creates a more interesting story, which makes me want to dive into the thriller and to really absorb all the pages. It just makes me enjoy the story a lot more when there's just more detail and when it's rich in that kind of detail. Anyway, Such a Good Wife is about our heroine who is bored with her life, so she decides to join like a writing club. She's just unhappy, right? So she starts an affair with a successful local author there, and everything seems to go well, you know? Everything seems perfect. Her husband doesn't know that she's cheating. Her family doesn't know. But then what happens is that the author ends up dead, and now she can't tell anybody that she has this affair because it will ruin her whole life. But then she also knows if she doesn't tell anybody about her affair, this mystery of this murder case will never be solved. So I think it's going to be a fun domestic thriller. So the next book that I picked up is this one called The End of Her by Sherry Lapina. Now, this one I've already read. I've read all of Sherry Lapina's works. I just eat all her stories. It's just so captivating. It's like a domestic thriller slash like family thriller. It's so dramatic. It's unbelievable. Like, I just love her writing. Even though some of her books, I've given it like 3 out of 5 stars, maybe 2 out of 5 stars, simply because I felt like the ending was far stretched. I felt like, you know, it wasn't giving me what it was supposed to give. I still like her writing, and I still would read every new release that she has. So The End of Her was a book that was probably published like maybe 2 years ago. Definitely published, you know, longer than her last book. But this one involves a cast of characters who all deal with this one freaking girl. And it's just so fun reading into all these different characters and their backstories and what they have to hide and like what's going on, how each and every single person's being manipulated by each other. It's fantastic, and I should definitely recommend you to pick this one up. I picked it up because I listened to the audiobook, but I wanted the physical copy to remind myself that I liked this one. The book that started it all was this one called The Couple Next Door, and this one was her debut novel. This one is about our hero and heroine in a very loving relationship. It's a domestic thriller, but what happens is that they have a dinner party, or they're invited to a dinner party next door. They have a newborn child. They think it's okay to leave the newborn child, you know, next door because, you know, it's like walking distance. They have like the baby monitor and everything, but then what happens is that this baby is gone missing, and now nobody knows who took the baby, and it's this whole case. There's an inspector in this book who's trying to solve the case. We're interviewing everybody under the sun, trying to make sure who it is so that they can find this baby, because this baby could potentially die if the person who took the baby doesn't know how to take care of a baby. So I really like this one, and I picked it up from the thrift store once again so I could remind myself that I like this book. So the next book that I have here is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. I didn't realize that this one was such a big book, but this one was recently been adapted into a movie with Amy Adams, and I want to watch the movie, but I also want to read the book first. But then I also see that this book is huge, so I don't know what to feel about it. But basically, our heroine is an unreliable narrator. She is on a buttload of drugs. She's isolating herself in an apartment, but she sees something across the street, I think, in a window, and then she sees a crime being committed, but then nobody believes her because she's kind of like crazy in the head. The next thriller that I picked up is this one called For Better and Worse, and it's by Margaret Hunt. And I read this book already. I enjoyed it. It was a domestic thriller involving a happy family where our main character, our heroine, and our hero have a son. And, you know, like they're okay. Like they have a bumpy relationship, but that's just life. Like, you know, romance sometimes doesn't just always happen. But they learn to live with each other, right? And they're successful in their careers. But then what happens is this shocking revelation that something might have happened in the school involving a senior figure. And now our heroine, the mom, is really scared that her child has been impacted by this senior figure there in the school. And she goes kind of crazy when she realizes that her son might have gotten hurt. And she and him, the husband, actually plot the murder of the senior figure. And now they both have to cover up their crimes so that they don't go to jail. But thank goodness they're both lawyers and they've seen so many of these cases that they know exactly what they're doing. So a new thriller that I did pick up recently is this one called My Darling Husband by Kimberly Bell. This one involves our heroine and our hero who seem pretty well off because our hero is a celebrity chef. He's supposedly making a lot of money, but then a home invasion happens and he is literally struggling to find the money. And now she's kind of left questioning her life and her existence after the home invasion. So there seems to be like a lot of lies that the husband is kind of keeping. And little did they both know the home invasion was planned and that somebody is still watching them every step of the way. So another domestic thriller that I did pick up is this one called The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. And this one involves kind of like a weird plot. Our heroine is a defense attorney and she's really good at her job. She's married to her husband that she loves, but then her husband has an affair with someone else, and then that someone else ends up dead. And now he is being charged with all these like murder charges. So he asks his wife to defend him and like begs for forgiveness. And our heroine is like, okay, I'll do it. But she is like questioning her life existence because she married to this guy that's been charged with murder. And now she thinks that maybe she never knew her husband all along. So another thriller that I picked up is this one called The Fiancee by Kate White. And this one sounds so freaking interesting. So our heroine is married to a husband that she loves. They have a child together and they go on summer vacation to meet up with her husband's family in the Hamptons because they're all rich and they're all great. And then her husband's brother brings a girlfriend to the trip. And she recognizes her and thinks that she looks very familiar, but she can't really place her finger on it. And then what happens is that there's a murder during their vacation and somebody died. And now she suspects it's the girlfriend because there's just something about her that is very unsettling that she can't remember. And I think this one's going to be super fun to figure out like what the heck happened. So the last book that I want to talk about is this one, which is like a YA fantasy novel called The Keeper of the Night by Kylie Lee Baker. This one involves like a Japanese folklore retelling kind of thing. Not even like it's just filled with like kind of Japanese culture. So our heroine is actually a demon. She is a Grim Reaper. She collects souls, but she can't control her abilities. So she needs to flee Japan and she needs to go down into the underworld where she talks to the Queen of the Dead and in order to prove herself and her abilities. So she goes there and then the Goddess of Death is like, you can prove your abilities if you kill these 3 demons. So now she needs to work with her brother and this other ally to kill these 3 demons. And I've read literally a chapter of this book. It's very atmospheric. The writing is very tense. It's very dark, as you can imagine with Grim Reaper novels, because you're literally reading about somebody's last dying minutes and the main heroine kind of just sucking the soul out of them. So I had to put this book down because I wasn't in the mood for like a very dark and angsty novel, but I'm really enjoying the writing. But anyways, that is it for all the romance novels that I wanted to show you in part 2. We're making our way. As you can see, there's like a hole there now. So I'll see you guys next time in another book haul. Bye.